All right, with Mia Lobo, Fly Away, Froggy Boy is the short film. It's 8 minutes long. It's from Canada. It's a student thesis project. It's animation but it was we showed it at our Action Adventure Film Festival. What a great film! So tell me about how long has this film been in your head? How long has this story been in your head?
Honestly, it wasn't in my head that long. Um, for my thesis, we had to everyone in our class would pitch something, and everyone pitches it. The whole class gets to sort of hear the pitch, see the presentation, and any art you might have done for it. And we sort of go through a voting process. And I actually pitched something completely different for my first run. But I wasn't a huge fan of my idea. It was sort of a last minute thing. And when I came up with the idea was because I was with my partner on a call and I was sort of talking about this whole pitching thing. And they were like, you should just do something about a fly getting revenge on a frog gang. And I was like, okay, that seems like a fun idea. And I sort of pitched it to see what would happen, like if any other people thought it was an interesting idea. I wasn't really sure if it was anything at all, but people ended up really liking it, which was a huge surprise. So it wasn't actually in my head very long at all. It was sort of a last minute idea that ended up becoming a whole project, which is unbelievable in
That's
hindsight.
amazing. That's an amazing story because it's such a great concept and it's got, like
Yeah.
you said, it's the way you animated it is spectacular, but it also has that kind of comedic kind of flair to it, kind of that originality, the action kind of concept to it, where we all kind of we're hooked in, and everybody's smoking cigars. So how can you not like it?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So then you pitched it, and then people liked it, and then so what's this is at Seneca College.
Yeah.
So this is your how long is the course?
This was our final year project, so we were going from I think like our second week back at school, we were pitching. Um, so from around like end of September to end of April was the whole production period. Um, yeah, like we pretty much were working with classes. We had a couple classes dedicated to working on the film. Other classes were completely unrelated to the film. So we were spending that pretty much our entire school year working on it. And our final day of school was the day we had to hand in the film.
Okay.
And there was a whole festival and everything. But it was sort of like a clustered process in terms of production because we were sort of just going with it and just seeing what happens. I hadn't really worked on a production like this before. So there's a lot of trial and error for
I
sure.
bet. But you didn't have a script either, right? You had to write the script.
No, I didn't have a script. Some other films that were pitched and made had the idea. I know one of the films had the idea early summer
Yeah.
and wrote it and fleshed it out and kind of figured out um, the story. There were a couple other films who had a general idea, but for mine, I did not have a story at all. I just had Fly Gets Revenge on Frog Gang. And that was enough for people to hop on board, which was amazing. But I had to come up with the story idea now. Like I had no beginning, middle, or end. I had a general concept of like, okay, I think he's going to be getting revenge. I think his like partner will have been killed by the frog gang. And that whole like script process went on for quite a long time in production. I think it was September to like January. We pretty much finally locked it in January. It was generally done by December, but we had a couple fixes and a couple changes that we did. But that was like, it's a dangerously long time to spend on the script
Yeah.
with the limited amount of time we had. Um, it was very much like we were really like going with the flow. I had a really lenient team that was working with me, which was amazing. And working on the script was very much a group activity. We would meet up with my story team. We'd meet up every couple days with like a whiteboard in one of the empty classrooms and then sort of break down what we thought should happen. So that in that way we did have a leg down from the other groups, which was that we just didn't have a proper story figured out yet. So that took a huge portion of time in production, and we had the least amount of people in our group. The other groups had more people than we did. Um, but yeah, the script was definitely, I think, the hardest process for me. And then of course animation is closely behind in that
Yeah, I
way.
bet. Well, it's the reason why I asked that original question because uh, I've been fortunate enough to talk to people like yourself who are doing their thesis animation projects, and a lot of the students I talked to, they thought this idea when they were in high school, they thought this idea when they were 10 years old. Like this has been ruminating in their brain for a long time. So you're the first one that I've talked to date where it's like, oh, I'm just pitching things, and it's just like. I know. I thought because the way the style is, the way the animation is, and the way that the final product is, I thought this is it's good. I think it's fantastic. And basically, it teaches me that, or maybe it taught you that maybe it's good to have a deadline because
Yeah, oh my God, yeah.
yeah,
Like I can't believe it. In hindsight, like it's kind of unbelievable what we were able to achieve with that in mind.
yeah,
But like I'm often the kind of filmmaker who had the idea ruminating over a long period of time. Like that's usually how I work. This was like a totally new for me.
yeah.
But I think I don't know, I knew I wanted to direct. And I was really set on it. And I was stressed out throughout the summer because I was thinking, like, I don't have any ideas. And this one was just ridiculous enough, but intriguing enough that I think people hopped on board. And I think it helped a lot that I have been like really into like dark, gritty noir type movies. Like I really love Batman, and a huge inspiration for this movie in terms of style was Sin City. I'd watched it like a
Gotcha.
while earlier. I think like a couple months prior, I had watched it with my dad. And I was like, this is insane. Like it's so weird and it's all the
Yeah.
dialogue is insane. But I thought it was hilarious. And I thought doing a noir and something gritty would be awesome. But yeah, it was totally new experience for me. It's very stressful not having an idea totally fleshed out when you have to make a production.
Well, your
So I
main
don't
character,
recommend it.
your main
But
character name McFly, right? So that is that a tribute
yeah.
to Back to the Future, or is that just a coincidence?
Um, yeah, like when I came up with the idea, I was like, oh yeah, it's kind of like a Back to the Future reference. People think about it. And it felt like just perfect because I was like, flies in the name, like we're kind of cutting it to we're being very direct with the
Yeah.
names. And I thought that'd be really funny.
It's like
Um,
calling me McHuman or calling you
yeah.
McHuman.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's
For
great.
sure.
I think it's fantastic. Okay, so tell me about okay, what's the style? What's the style of this animation? What kind of animation is this?
So this is 2D rigging,
Okay,
which is very common in a lot of like Toronto kids cartoons. Um, the best way I can describe it is if you think about sort of 3D animation, they have a 3D model.
yeah.
It's sort of similar in that way, but it's a 2D model, basically. It's like a puppet, and each piece of the body for each of the characters is a separate piece that you can move manually on the
Oh,
animation software. So there's only a couple things in this film that are traditionally hand drawn. Some shots, like Frogfather's tongue, is
yeah.
traditionally hand drawn on our software. All the special effects, so like the blood, smoke, not smoke. Yes, the smoke, blood, smoke, fire. That's all hand drawn, but everything else was 2D rigging. It's very hard to explain it without being able to show you the
Yeah.
model we made, but it's essentially like a paper puppet that you get to move in software,
Okay,
and
so
we
you got the
sort of
script.
animated.
The script is done, and then are you working on storyboards while you're working on the script?
Yes, we
Okay.
were scripting. Um, we waited for storyboards until generally the script was locked, which it wasn't fully locked because we needed to start storyboarding by, I think, November. So we were we just needed to make a Leica, which is basically like the rough version, the rough storyboard of the film.
Yeah,
Um, and we needed to have that ready by mid-December. So we started late on our Leica because the script was going through so many revisions and finalizations. But once we had it generally locked, this is when it was pretty close to what it was going to be, but there were still going to be a couple changes along the way.
yeah,
We had a storyboard team, which was two people, three people, and we ended up expanding that to most of the group, because there's a lot of stuff that happens in this film. It's very long, and the storyboard team needed some extra hands, so we all ended up stepping in on the storyboard. Like I did the first act. Another member of my group did one act and the other act, and then we would edit and just go over and over. And we had a lot of professors working with us. So we had a storyboard professor working with us, which was great. So he could tell us if things weren't making sense, things were unclear, gave us a lot of revisions. It was very stressful. Getting the storyboard done was super stressful, but you need to do it right because all the animation is going to be based on the storyboard, not the other way around.
yeah.
So those foundations were really important. After we finished the Leica, we need to finish the Leica because we were doing a sort of film festival presentation and then getting feedback from professors and students from other classes and alumni. And then after we had done that, we took some feedback and then we went back in over winter break, fixed up the storyboard some more. I did some script rewrites. I took a lot of feedback from people I knew, things people had said. Like the cutting the eyes was not in the original film. Um, what else? There was a lot less Emil, like his partner was a lot, it was in the film a lot less in the previous version. Um, I think there was a bit less of the Croaks in the previous version as well. So there was some like pretty decently big changes. But it was definitely a very stressful experience. Getting the storyboard done
I
is a
bet.
lot of work.
Well, tell me about the color design, right? Because
Oh yeah.
the at the beginning it's like film noir. I'm just generalizing the aesthetic. So it's got but he's got his eyes are red, and then the
Hmm.
cigarette smoke is red, and then there's like even there's a green hue in the background.
Hmm.
I think when he's outside, and then of course the blood, the green frog broad blood. So you're kind of like you're introducing these colors, and then at the end of the film, it's basically all color, I guess, right? And it's kind of creeps up on you. Of course, his tongue is red, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of an amazing kind of, and then all of a sudden, without you even the audience even realizing it, everything's in color. It's kind of a
Yeah.
really cool flow.
Yeah, it wasn't supposed to be that colorful originally, but one thing we're taught in class when making animated productions is you make something called a color script, and it's basically like a very rough um collection of drawings of what all the shots are going to look like in the film. So you do like one shot, one drawing per shot, and the whole point of the color script is to showcase how the colors are being interpreted in each scene. And we are taught to use color as a way to assist the audience in depicting the emotion that we intend to depict with the film.
Yeah,
But with our idea, I knew I wanted to do limited color palette because we were sort of referencing noir movies that were muted color tones, and a lot of noirs were in black and white and not in color. So I really wanted to do that. But we were sort of pushed away from staying in black and white the entire movie. They suggested that maybe we like add in a couple more colors. So I knew I wanted to do the red, and I think I knew I wanted to do colorful fire. Um, and just sort of over the course of the whole film, it we started coming up with new ideas to integrate color. And we thought it'd be cool once we put the zapper into like the idea of the story. We were like, oh yeah, we could have the zapper be a purple color. Then we get to switch up the color palette without sort of confusing the audience by breaking the rules of the world.
yeah,
So we did it very intentionally so the audience didn't feel too confused, but it sort of feels like a very natural escalation into
Yeah.
color. Like you're saying, like it sort of very naturally flows in. And I did want a sort of like a light green hue over the film, because he's in like a
Yeah.
swampy type area. And it's just like it makes it a little more dynamic. It puts a lot more focus on things when everything else is grayscale, and then some elements are in color, like the frog tongue and the blood.
Yeah.
And we just thought it would be really cool to have green blood, because then it makes it a little less
I'm convinced. I'm convinced
disturbing
that
to
frogs
look
are.
at for people if the blood is green.
But
Um,
what makes it interesting is that it kind of churns from a kid's film to a PG third, especially at the end, because it's like the end is gory, right? And it's all in
yeah,
color, right?
yeah, it does.
Like even though like spoiler alert, like I hope like I'm sure people like the hero wins, but at the same time it's like, man, that was like one nasty death.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, he went out on his own terms, at least,
Yeah.
and he did what he wanted to do. Um, I think we were definitely aiming to do something crazy. One thing I really like to achieve with my work, especially animation work, is I really wanted to do something that was not for kids. I don't like the idea and the narrative that animation is for kids. Like
Yeah.
that is a very common way of thinking for a lot of people. And I think it's because like Disney and Pixar are
Yeah.
like some of the most famous animation studios in the world. Um, and they make very family friendly movies, but think a lot of like people just interpret animation as for kids automatically. And that's something I really like to push against.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to do that with this project. I'm like, if I'm going to be able to make a thesis film, it's not going to be that. I'm going to push against that narrative. And I was like, what is the craziest way for me to push against a narrative like that? And it
Yeah.
was by us pushing the violence and the craziness in this movie to like a different degree, but also making it very funny and entertaining, and
100%.
sort of like a parody of noirs and everything.
Yeah, it's like I said, I think it's like it's sort I know basically what you're referencing, but you in your blog interview you referenced the Incredibles, right?
Mm.
Where even the second one's really good too, but basically, but you referenced how about you when you watched it as a kid, you like all the plots and like the maturity was went over your head. And I think that's what the geniuses of some of these animation films are. It was like like Inside Out, whatever. I just watched it with my kids. It's like that's a very sophisticated movie.
Hmm.
And but the kids are watching one version, we're watching another version, right?
Hmm.
And I can almost say the same thing about your film too, where it's like, oh, look at this cutesy fly. Look at, you know what I mean? Like he's just like he's out to get the frogs because it's an underdog story. We like that. I know there's it's gory in the end, but at the same time, like it is funny. Like I think it is. I think you're capturing many audiences with your film at the same time.
I was very surprised about that, to be honest. When I was making the film, I wasn't sure how people would react. I because it's just so like it's really weird, and the violence is like it can be a lot at some points in the film. And so when we first premiered it, I was a bit anxious. I was like, I really don't know how people are going to react to this. But people really like a lot of people really, really like this movie. I think like it helps. The first layer of comedy is the idea when they realize what's happening, like what the plot is. People find that very funny. Anytime I've ever had to describe the idea, um, where they're like, "Oh, what's your thesis about?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's about a fly who gets revenge on a frog gang." They're like, are you serious?" Every time I've told them, they always think I'm joking. I'm like, no, I'm not. That's the actual plot of it. So the underlying idea is very funny to them. And then I think how quickly it escalates to violence is very funny to people.
Yeah,
Um, and also the sort of noir, like over dramatics are very funny, and like a couple like parodies of names, like there's McFly, Frogfather, the Croaks as the gang. I think people find very funny. But when I've gone to festivals when the film is playing, like people are laughing so hard at the whole thing. And I've definitely gone to a couple, I think like one screening once where like there was quite a mixed reaction, I think, because of the violence. And the other films of my year had played, and they were all generally a bit more family friendly. And I was like, yeah, that's that sounds about right. There's definitely some people, this is a bit of an acquired taste,
Yeah.
but it has like a lot of love. I've gotten a lot of love for this film, which has
Oh my
been
God. Yeah.
really amazing. And I feel really honored that people like it.
Listen, I watch a lot of films. This is a pretty great film, so you should be proud.
Thank you. I appreciate
It,
that a
it,
lot.
I'm sure you've been asked this before, but it's a big there's a bigger concept here. There's a bigger film. There's a sequel. Like you talk about film noir, like love interest is the sequel, right? So
Right, yeah. There's
right.
always the love interest.
Yeah, there's not one in this film, which leads to the sequel, right? But or like a bigger idea, like a series, or I'm sure you've been told this before. Like, what is your thoughts about kind of expanding it?
Um, Honestly, no one has actually asked me about that, but
Come
I
on,
think
it's like
um
it's a classic like TV series. But go ahead, go ahead.
um I don't know, like I don't think there's anything else to say about it. Like if I was asked to expand on it, I don't even know what I would do. Because at the end of the film, he basically dies. I mean, it's you could like do like a noir sequel twist where he actually doesn't die and he just gets up and gets
Of
out just in
course,
time.
yeah.
But I don't think there's anything else for me to tell with this story. I think it did everything it needed to do. Um and I'm not really interested in doing something else with it. I think it did exactly what I wanted it to do. Um and I just genuinely can't see anything else to do with it. And I just feel happy that I got to make it. And that was that. I'm hoping to move on to some other stuff. But if people like wanted a sequel, that would be a huge honor to me, honestly. I'd feel really honored that people wanted that. I think it's hilarious.
So okay, so like there's like proof of concepts for shorts, but this is a proof of concept of your talent, which
Right.
is this is something you can show anybody that this is what I'm made of, right? And
Yeah.
I don't want to understate because I want to get to something else, but I want to understate that great sound design, great
Mhm.
voice actors, like especially for an 8 minute film, there's lots of dialogue, there's lots of
Yes.
voice performances, which is very rare for especially a thesis project, from my experience. So that must have been an undertaking too, doing the whole
Oh
sound
my God.
design and concept and all the voiceovers.
Yeah. We were definitely warned a ton against doing what we were doing throughout
Yeah,
the process.
I bet. Yeah.
Like a ton. They were like, are you sure you want to do this? Because this is a lot of work. And I was like, this is the best way to do it. So this is what we have to do. In terms of voice acting, yeah, it made it harder for the script too, because we had to add in dialogue. Dialogue has to be rewritten a lot. Making for voice acting was tough. Um, it was a lot of recording and getting that in there, getting the right takes. I was very lucky. I got a really great cast of voice actors. I was really, really happy with that. And they were all in my inner circle. So I got super lucky. McFly was voiced by my partner, who was the co-creator of the idea, but also did the sound design.
Oh, okay.
Um, 'Cause he works as a foley artist in like professionally. So we got
Yeah, he's got
professional
some
foley on
talent.
this film. It was really, really good. I was so happy about that. We got a really great musician to work on the score. And in terms of the voice acting too, I thought he was a great McFly. And I thought Frogfather was perfect. And that was one of our professors that was teaching us. He played Frogfather for us. Um, Jim Zub. He's excellent. And the other actors were some of my classmates. I held some like very rough auditions for those like croak roles on the side, and they were the ones I liked best.
Yeah.
And we just recorded all our lines at school in one of the classrooms. But I think in the end, the film is a lot better because of everything we did, even if it was a lot of extra work, a lot of stress. We did what was best for the film and the end product, so I'm very happy we did that. But films, especially in at our school, not very often have people done films with dialogue before,
Yeah.
because they're actively warned against it. But three of the films, including mine, of last year had dialogue. Only one didn't. We were all a very ambitious year for sure.
So what do you do? So I'm assuming you graduated and you passed with flying colors.
Yeah, we passed. We made it. Thankfully, all
So what's your
passed.
what do you, are you looking to get work in the industry as an animator? What's the next step for you?
Yeah, I think I'm very interested in working as a storyboard artist. Just a startup. Do a little bit of animation would also be fantastic. I'm definitely looking for work in the industry. Um, and end goal far down the line, I'm hoping I can be directing things and making more of my own work. That's the dream. But a bunch of jobs working on other productions, I would absolutely love. There's so much to learn from being on other people's productions. I would absolutely love to do anything like that, live action or animation, honestly.
Well, I love this film. I was referencing we want to show this film at our cinema at Carlton Cinemas in January. I'd love to see the live reaction as you referenced before. We'll do Q&A with you then too as well. I just think this is a fantastic film, and I love the story about how like it just you rush to it like but it's perfect. It's
Yeah.
like perfect in many ways, and how you just want to move on too, right? Where you got this is like you got this out of your system and you showed your talent, and I hope you can keep making movies. Well, it seems like your partner knows sound, so
Yeah,
that's
at least we got
half the
sound
battle.
covered. For sure
Well,
we have sound
that's amazing.
covered.
That's half the battle. It's a really solid sound design, and as you know, that's key for animation, right? So
Yeah.
of course for every film, but especially for animation. So
Mhm.
so just yeah, hopefully you can if you got some other ideas, just keep making movies. That's what I suggest to you because I think you're on your way.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I'm very honored that the film got to screen for you guys. I love the video of reactions I got. It was fantastic. Um, I just feel really honored that I get to talk about the film and that people care about it. It's such an honor. Honestly, it's such an honor. A lot of work. And I wasn't sure if people would like the film by the end.
Of course.
So it's pretty surreal to see it screened and people really, it speaks to people in a way, which is pretty awesome.
But it also seems that you have some producer abilities as well. It seems like you brought in a really nice team of people on your film, which is very like maybe it's unconscious on your part, but basically it's very tough to do, right? Especially on student projects. But it seems like it was a great team that you had too.
I did have like the best team. And the thing was, it wasn't even really me. I didn't do much in terms of choosing them. When we pitched, everyone just chooses the idea they like best.
Yeah.
And all the people on my team were the people who decided they believed in the idea. They wanted to work with me, as ambitious as it was. And I just was very, very lucky because I had such insane talent on my team. No matter how small we were, like it was very tough because we didn't have a ton of people. Um, but we like absolutely made magic. And we still keep in touch today. I'm always sending them updates about, what films we're getting into. Um, and yeah, like I owe a huge amount of everything this film is to them. Like they are just the best. Um, and they mean a lot to me. And I really hope that this film can help them with their careers as
Yeah.
well. I really hope we all get to reap the benefits of this because this was as much of their work as it was mine. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's great. All right. Well, on that note, let's talk again when you make your next film.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so
All right.
much.
You got it. Thank you so much. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.